The Age of Enlightenment, also known as the Age of Reason, was an intellectual and cultural movement in the 17th and 18th centuries that emphasized reason, logic, and empirical evidence. It marked a shift away from traditional and religious authorities towards individualism and scientific inquiry. This period profoundly influenced philosophy, science, politics, and society at large, laying the groundwork for modern thought and democratic principles. Philosophical foundations. The Enlightenment was built on the ideas of several key philosophers. René Descartes, often referred to as the father of modern philosophy, emphasized the importance of doubt and questioning in cogito, ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. John Locke's theories of mind and government propose that individuals have natural rights to life, liberty, and property. Voltaire, a fierce critic of the church and advocate for freedom of speech, used his wit to challenge the status quo. Immanuel Kant urged individuals to dare to know and think for themselves, promoting the idea of autonomy and self-governance. Scientific advancements. The Enlightenment was also a time of significant scientific progress. Isaac Newton's laws of motion and universal gravitation laid the foundations for classical physics. His work Principia Mathematica became a cornerstone for understanding the physical world. The period also saw advancements in biology, chemistry, and medicine. Carl Linnaeus developed a system for classifying living organisms, while Antoine Lavoisier's work in chemistry identified and named elements such as oxygen and hydrogen. These scientific breakthroughs were characterized by a reliance on observation, experimentation, and the scientific method. Political ideas. The Enlightenment profoundly influenced political thought. Philosophers such as Montesquieu advocated for the separation of powers within government, which became a cornerstone of modern democratic systems. Jean-Jacques Rousseau's concept of the social contract proposed that governments derive their authority from the consent of the governed. These ideas challenged the divine right of kings and absolute monarchies, leading to calls for more representative and accountable forms of governance. The American Revolution and the French Revolution were both heavily influenced by Enlightenment ideals, resulting in significant political and social changes. Social and cultural impact. The Enlightenment had a significant impact on society and culture. Education and literacy rates increased as more people had access to books and knowledge. Encyclopedias and dictionaries, such as Diderot's Encyclopédie, sought to compile and disseminate knowledge to a wider audience. Art and literature also flourished, with writers like Jonathan Swift and Mary Wollstonecraft addressing social issues through their works. The emphasis on reason and critical thinking led to a questioning of traditional beliefs and practices, paving the way for social reforms and greater individual freedoms. Economic thought. Economic theory during the Enlightenment saw significant development, particularly with the rise of classical economics. Adam Smith's seminal work The Wealth of Nations introduced concepts such as the division of labor, free markets, and the invisible hand that guides economic activity. Smith argued for limited government intervention in the economy, advocating that individuals pursuing their self-interest would contribute to the overall good of society. These ideas laid the groundwork for modern economic theory and capitalism. Religious critique. The Enlightenment brought about a critical examination of religious institutions and beliefs. Deism, which emerged during this period, promoted the idea of a rational God who created the universe but does not intervene in human affairs. This contrasted sharply with the traditional views of an active, interventionist deity. Voltaire and other thinkers criticized the power and influence of the Church, advocating for religious tolerance and the separation of church and state. This period saw a decline in the unquestioned authority of religious institutions and a move towards secularism. Educational reforms. The Enlightenment placed a high value on education and the dissemination of knowledge. Thinkers like John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote extensively on education, emphasizing the importance of developing reason and critical thinking skills in children. Rousseau's work Émile, or On Education proposed a more natural and individualized approach to education, focusing on the development of the child's abilities and interests. These ideas influenced educational practices and institutions, leading to reforms that aim to make education more accessible and effective. Influence on art and architecture. The Enlightenment influenced art and architecture, leading to the development of new styles and approaches. Neoclassicism emerged as a dominant style, drawing inspiration from the art and architecture of ancient Greece and Rome. This movement emphasized simplicity, symmetry, and proportion, reflecting the Enlightenment ideals of order and reason. Artists like Jacques-Louis David and architects like Thomas Jefferson incorporated these principles into their work, creating structures and artworks that embodied the spirit of the Enlightenment. The role of salons. Salons played a crucial role in the spread of Enlightenment ideas. These gatherings, often hosted by influential women in their homes, provided a space for intellectuals, writers, and philosophers to discuss and debate ideas. Salons facilitated the exchange of knowledge and the dissemination of Enlightenment thought across Europe. Figures such as Madame Geoffrin and Madame de Staël were renowned salonières who fostered intellectual exchange and supported the careers of many Enlightenment thinkers. Impact on literature. The Enlightenment had a profound impact on literature. Writers explored new themes and forms, often using satire and fiction to critique society and promote Enlightenment ideals. Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels and Voltaire's Candide are notable examples of works that used humor and satire to question social norms and religious dogma. The period also saw the rise of the novel as a literary form, with authors like Daniel Defoe and Samuel Richardson pioneering the genre and exploring themes of individualism and personal development. The Enlightenment and women. The Enlightenment had a complex impact on women's roles and rights. While the period promoted ideas of equality and individual rights, these principles were often not extended to women. However, some female thinkers and writers, such as Mary Wollstonecraft, began to challenge traditional gender roles and advocate for women's education and rights. Wollstonecraft's A Vindication of the Rights of Woman argued for the education of women and their participation in public life, laying the groundwork for later feminist movements. Global influence. The ideas of the Enlightenment had a global impact, influencing movements for independence and reform around the world. The American Revolution was deeply inspired by Enlightenment principles, with figures like Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin drawing on the works of Locke, Montesquieu, and Rousseau. In Latin America, leaders such as Simón Bolívar were influenced by Enlightenment ideas in their struggles for independence from colonial rule. The spread of Enlightenment thought contributed to the development of democratic institutions and the promotion of human rights on a global scale. Criticism and counter-Enlightenment. While the Enlightenment was celebrated for its emphasis on reason and progress, it also faced criticism and opposition. Some thinkers, such as Jean-Jacques Rousseau, critiqued the overemphasis on reason and science, arguing that they could lead to the neglect of emotions and individual uniqueness. The counter-Enlightenment emerged as a reaction against the perceived excesses of Enlightenment rationalism, advocating for a return to tradition, religion, and community values. This movement highlighted the tensions and complexities within the broader Enlightenment project. Legacy. The legacy of the Enlightenment is vast and enduring. It laid the intellectual foundations for modern science, democracy, and human rights. The emphasis on reason, individualism, and empirical evidence continues to influence contemporary thought and society. The Enlightenment also sparked social and political reforms that have shaped the modern world, promoting ideals of liberty, equality, and justice. Despite its limitations and criticisms, the Age of Enlightenment remains a pivotal period in the history of human thought and progress. The Age of Enlightenment was a transformative period that reshaped the intellectual, cultural, and political landscape of the modern world. Through its emphasis on reason, science, and individual rights, it challenged traditional authorities and laid the groundwork for contemporary democratic and scientific principles. The ideas and advancements of the Enlightenment continue to influence and inspire, making it a crucial era in the ongoing pursuit of knowledge and human progress.